Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening. I guess whatever time you guys are watching this. Thanks for joining in via the web. I apologize that we weren't able to make it an actual in-class lecture this week, guys. But thanks to the power of the internet and Google and YouTube, here we are. So I'd like to kick off this week. It's going to be a little bit different, of course, because I don't have the pleasure of your wonderful company and intelligent questions. And of course, without you being here, there's nobody that can bring me food or Valentine's or anything exciting like that. But fear not, the following week we'll be together and you guys can shower me with food at that point. So this week, we want to continue off of our lesson from last week, in which I promised that the content would get lighter and easier, and so I am fulfilling on that here today. And we're going to be talking about macro influencers. So the other thing that we're sort of, I guess, pulling from last week is we ended up talking about macro influencers finally, after spending weeks talking about the importance of identifying micro influencers and customers and how customers make decisions and working backwards to identify the appropriate macro influencer. Well, for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about that, macro influencers and content that you can then funnel back through the path that we've just identified over the course of the last number of weeks. So let's get right into it. And go through, there we go. We're going to break this up into sort of 4 different areas: finding bloggers, engaging with bloggers, developing content, and then measuring. So it should be relatively quick, pretty easy. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is talk about finding bloggers. And so I'm going to switch screens here for a minute, and I'm going to go live on the internet, because I want to give you a really quick, down and dirty overview of 2 different networks that you may not be familiar with, but that you should become familiar with if you're going to get involved in blogging, blogger outreach, and influence marketing. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute, and I am going to switch screens with you guys. So hello, everybody. Share screens. I'm going to share a different screen with you. It should be this one here. All right, and we are going to first of all talk about a in-network. That's our first one. And for those of you who want to go and check it out on your own, it's In Network Canada, or innetwork.net. All right, so present to everyone. You guys should be seeing it up on screen momentarily. All right, slow internet connection at the Newnham campus. So we're going to be talking about 2 different networks. The first one is In-Network, and the second one is Triber. Now, for whatever reason here, it doesn't seem that it wants to speed up the internet connection. So we're going to switch over and talk. Oh, here we go. As you can figure out, I'm not in our classroom. I'm in the classroom at Newnham campus for the evening course. And they're much, much slower over here. Okay, so anyway, In-Network. In-Network is a community of bloggers that is vetted by a Canadian company. So I'm pretty happy and proud of the fact that this is a Canadian company. And it is called In-Network. This is they're still in beta, but they've been in beta now for about 2 years. So they've got a pretty good program running. And they call themselves an influence marketplace. And essentially what it does is creates a database of bloggers, some of which they found, others that people have subscribed to this network and uploaded their blog information. And it allows brands to go in and, as it shows on screen here, find influencers based on specific categories. It gives you a step-by-step program or wizard that helps you create a brief and create a sales pitch, essentially, to these bloggers to promote your product, and then allows you the ability to track the reaction that people have to the content that these bloggers put out. So it's really an all-in-one macro influencer setup management tracking tool. And it's really pretty brilliant how it works. And what I love about it more than anything else, and I'm going to log in here to show you a little bit of the back end. What I really like about it is that it is half software, half automated, and half run by people. So there's a lot of human intervention in this, as opposed to a program like Clout, which relies purely on technology, and which, as we've proven, doesn't really work all of the time. And so the way that this works, as you can see here, I've just logged in and I've pulled up my profile. And I have not uploaded my profile, nor have I really put any information into it, as you can see, yet they have identified me and have already tagged me with certain commentary based on what they've scanned on my profile. So my email is in here. You can see that my profile and my biography is not listed here because I've not volunteered that information at this point, and they've not finished, I guess, scanning my profile. But they already know, if you take a look at categories, that I've got advertising and marketing is something that I write a lot about, business and industrial, culture and lifestyle, family and relationships. I've been writing a lot about that since the death of my son on Huffington Post, so they've pulled that out. Food and drink. Clearly they're following me on Facebook if they get that information. You know, social networks, they know that my geography is Canada and the United States because that's where my audience pulls from. So you can see that they've already started to pull some information about me, and I'm listed as identified in status. And there's a number of categories that these guys go through, and they classify bloggers based on different statuses. And their statuses are based on whether or not this person has been, this blogger and their audience has been vetted for certain categories that the software has determined they belong to. And so it really becomes a valuable tool to brands looking to engage marketers because it takes a lot of the guesswork out. Now you can create a free account. There's a certain amount of searches that it allows you to do every day as a free member. But then if you want to engage any of the bloggers, that's when you have to get into a paid account. So I highly recommend you guys go to innetwork.net and check it out. The one thing I want to show you is once you do a search, right? And I can go in here and do a quick search for you. And here we go. So the search now allows me to put in different parameters and then save the bloggers that I found into different rosters. And these are rosters of bloggers, right? So I can do a search here. I can click on it. And what you're going to see on screen when we do this is you can choose what categories am I looking for in terms of the blogger and their content. Graphic design, food and drink, culture and lifestyle, cooking and recipes. I can pick one or more of those. I can choose the gender of the blogger, male or female or both. Which social networks am I interested in? Now, if you go back to what we talked about in the last week in particular, where we determined that certain conversations were happening in certain networks. So this is, you know, one way to now focus in on people who write or share information in specific networks. So you can pick some or all, and then also pick the geography. Again, if you go back to the lesson we had last week and that fashion sports wear client who was specific to certain marketplaces across the US and how we were working with them individually, this gives you an idea of how to find local people in these particular markets and their audience in specific markets. Makes it a little bit easier for you to micro-target people. You've got advanced search functions here that allow you to put in specific blog names or networks or URLs if you want to pull in people. And what I really like about this is it allows you to exclude certain conversation subject matter. So, for example, I'm trying to think of a relevant example. Let's say, what am I thinking? Oh, so you want to do, let's say, movies. And so you're looking for people in the movie category, but then you don't want that blog because you're promoting a kid's movie. You don't want that blog talking about alcohol and tobacco and things like that. So you may want to exclude food, drink, alcohol from the search. That gives you a real opportunity here to fine tune the nature of the content and of the audience of the selected blogger. You also have network status, and this is where they have their in-network status, where you can say these are bloggers that have been registered, contacted, those that have been vetted. So you really have an opportunity to say, I don't want people in certain categories. So I don't want people who are not available or people who are still pending. Show me only people in specific categories. Then once you've done this search, you can add them to a roster. Now, let me show you a draft. This is just a general one that I put together. You can create rosters and call them whatever you want. In this case, I created a dummy account for wine bloggers. So I've done a search, and what you find is it'll pull up all of these bloggers that meet the criteria that I put in, right? And it tells me how many Twitter followers they have, how many Facebook fans they have, how many people are in their circles on Google Plus, how many people follow them on LinkedIn, right? So I can get a sense of who they are and how big their audience is and what their status is. As you can see here, I've highlighted vetted. And then I have the opportunity to get through some options, okay? And in these options, let me make this a little bit bigger for you. In these options, what I'm able to do is I can add this person to a specific roster, right? Or I can delete them from this roster altogether, because you know what? I don't like the fact that they don't have more than 10,000 people on Twitter. So I want to delete them, and it'll get rid of them, and I can then fine tune this list to a small number. Or I say, you know what? This is interesting. I want to create a subgroup. And so I can create a new roster with this profile. So this gives you sort of a sense of how it helps you, this software helps you find different bloggers based on a lot of different criteria. What I really like about this, actually, you've heard me say that, I guess, more than once here, is it allows you to filter the roster based on interests of their audience. So not the blogger's interests, but the interests associated with the people that read their blog, that comment on their blog, that follow them on Twitter. So this is, remember, we were talking about how do you identify the demographic of the audience of the influencer or the macro influencer? Well, here's one tool that allows you to do that. So the target market fit, right? So here I can take a look at what are the interests expressed by the audience. What's the gender of the audience, male, female? What's the size of the audience? I've got a little slide scale here that I can use. What's the age range of the audience that I'm trying to attract? And what is the geography of that audience? So not what's the geography of the blogger and what they say their audience is or where they're located, but based on scanning and software of their audience and who they engage, where are they? So this really allows you to identify the demographic of the audience to make sure that it matches your target demographic. And once you've created these rosters, now you can go into pitching them by using their tools. And basically their tools are a wizard that just says, you know, what is your offer? How much do you want to pay these people? What are you expecting of them? And it basically creates a system, it's a marketplace, which is what they call it, a marketplace where you can go back and forth. They sell themselves, you sell yourself, you guys get together and pitch something. Now we're going to talk about how to write a pitch later on in this lecture. But before we do that, I want to share with you one more network, and it's called Triber. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Triber or not before, but if you're blogging at all, you should know about Triber. It started by a guy by the name of Dino Dogan, based in New York City. He's become a friend of mine. He's been running this company now for about 4 years, 5 years. I joined early on because I had met him on Twitter. We became friends, and I just sort of, okay, let me check this out. And it was kind of a joke at the beginning, quite frankly. But the tool and the software has really grown and become something quite impressive. Triber is essentially a network of bloggers that get together under specific categories of shared interest based on what they write about, and they help promote each other. So this is bloggers helping bloggers. It was originally created for small bloggers to help each other get bigger audiences by, you know, promoting each other's blogs, commenting on each other's blogs. But now it's got quite a roster of, I think there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 bloggers around the world that all participate in this. And essentially the way the blog sharing, blog support works is you can either create or join a tribe. So I'm signed in as myself. Here's the tribes that I belong to. Some, as you can see, my profile picture here, I've created some, but mostly I work in other people's blogs. So here's one, Trusted Amigos. So let me log into Trusted Amigos. Right, so Amy Vernon is part of this, Nathan Burgess, Shelley Kramer, who created it, Stacy Hood. And so we are all part of this group. Now, if I go into activity, what Triber does is pull automatically every blog post that each one of us writes, and it displays it in this group, right? So here's Shelley Kramer wrote a blog post recently called Power Your Cold Calling with Social Recon. So awesome sessions and events to supercharge your hashtag 15NTC. Here's one that I wrote. Your business doesn't need a Facebook page. Wrap up a nonprofit llama drama. So that sort of thing. And what you can do with these is, you can see here, there's a little action button called share. So I'm going to go into another tribe just to show you some of the differences. Let me go into the social media tribe that I belong into and look at the activity. So 6 benefits of guest blogging apart from link building. Well, that sounds really interesting. I like it. So I can click on it and it will open up a new window that has the blog. I can read the blog. And if I like it, then I can share it. I can click share here. You'll notice it's changed from share to scheduled. And what this will now do is tweet out this blog post to my fans and followers on Twitter. I can also do this manual share here, and I can manually share it across different networks. So you can see basically how this works is that we get together with different bloggers. I can invite different bloggers, or I can ask to be invited to a specific blog tribe. And the concept here is reciprocal sharing. So we promote each other. And that's basically how it started. You can see that this particular group has 90 members. So I can view everybody that's in there. I can take a look at when were they last seen, how often do they post, when do they check in, how active are they. I can take a look at the combination of their posts, and then I can share. Now, that really doesn't have much to do with influence marketing, although if you are writing a blog that you hope will influence your audience and will gather an audience and build an audience, this is one way to sort of build that audience by joining another tribe in Triber. But what's really interesting about this company is now that they've got so many bloggers in here, Dino said, I can monetize this. And he started to offer campaigns, and that's what I'm going to show you now. Campaigns essentially are his way of getting influence marketing to work through this blog network. So here's 2 companies that are currently running promotions to these to appropriate bloggers inside this network. So here's like Iron Kill, right? Iron Kill promotion, and then Maxorb Vitamin B12 Cream launch. And so you can see here that there's a payment offered. So payment open, $300 minimum. And I can view the campaign. So let me look at this Iron Kill promotions. And basically what this does here is it tells me what the campaign is, right? So Iron Kill is a free to play fighting game available on Apple Store as well as Google Play. I can find out more details about it here. And here's the ask. Interested influencers need to promote the game's visibility across channels like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, Instagram, and personal blogs. Here's a campaign video that introduces the product that I can share and teaches me a little bit about it. And here are the campaign milestones. This is what the company is asking me as a blogger to do. Post about the game across my social networks, post a review of the game, create a viral video, which is kind of insane because you never know if a video is going to become viral or not. You just create a video and some instructions about the video, and then create memes, at least 10 memes that I can then share on a daily basis across all my social channels. If I'm interested in this, I can go to the top here. I can apply to join. And when I click apply to join, I have here, I can put in my location. I can tell them why I'm a good fit for this campaign. The minimum is $300 that they're offering, but if I want more, I can say, no, I want $308. I can, and then it becomes kind of an auction at that point. Facebook fan page, Google, Instagram, here's all of my social networks, and then I hit submit. This company, in this case Ironkill, will then see my application, and if they feel that I'm the right audience, my audience profile is right, my content is right, my audience is big enough, they will then say, you're approved, go ahead. And once I've completed all the tasks, they pay me the amount of money that I'm looking for. So this is what we're trying to do in this first section here, just give you an idea of how you can utilize available software online to find bloggers if you didn't want to go just the manual route of doing a Google search or doing a Twitter search for certain people talking about certain products and then finding their blogs. I'm not promoting one versus the other, although I think the in-network tool is probably one of the best on the market. And they're Canadian, so I always love to promote Canadian companies. So let me get back to the presentation. So I am going to stop my screen sharing here for a minute, and I'm going to switch. Hello again. Let me switch back to the deck. Here we go. Okay, so finding bloggers, that's where we are now, and we're going to move over to engaging bloggers. So once we've identified, 20, 30, 40, 50, however many bloggers we want to have as part of our roster, we now need to reach out to those. In-network provided a template, a wizard of sorts that allows you to sort of engage with people. The bloggers that are already set up in network are expecting pitches to come their way. Similarly, people within Triber have the opportunity to go in and do that exchange. You don't always have that opportunity. In many cases, you have to reach out to these bloggers via social networks or via email and invite them to become part of your program. So what we're looking to do here is just to talk about what are some of the key ways or key important factors when it comes to engaging these people. So the first thing you need to do is identify key bloggers. It's not enough to have 40, 50, 60 people and reach out to all of them. If you have 100 people, or let's say 100,000 people as a community in one blog, and then 50,000 in a second blog, if the blogger that has 50,000 people has a very well-defined audience demographic, you're better off connecting with them than, of course, with the person with 100,000 who doesn't have a well-defined audience. So you really do need to be very, very specific and set up who are my key bloggers and am I going to do anything different to them? There's a lot of software out there that allows you to do this. The second thing, and even more important, is acquaint yourself with their work. So read weeks worth of blogs, not just skim the last one or two. If you've identified a key blogger, go back, if you haven't already been following them, and read like up to a month of what they've been posting. Check to see if your product has been already featured or talked about, or a competitor product or theme has already been talked about. There's no sense in pitching somebody something that they've already blogged about a week ago or a month ago because it's not really going to be good for their audience to be repetitive that way. Check for content and tone of conversation. So make sure that the content is even accurate. Secondly, or when I say accurate, accurate for their audience, but then also check the tone. Does the tone of their blog, is it sarcastic? Is it comedic? Do they use, Comic Sans as their font? You know what I mean? Like, what is that tone, and does it suit your audience and your product? And does your product suit their audience? That's going to be important before you reach out to them. Does their audience comment or share a lot of their content on social networks? This is equally important. What type of content do they produce most often? And does it align with your brand? Is it original content, or is it curated content? So if you're not familiar what that means, is it curated content from other people? So are they just pulling blogs from other sites and then just aggregating it on, sharing it on their site? Or are they actually writing content? Typically, websites both can be very successful and have a lot of people, but those that produce original content typically have a more engaged audience. One tool that you could use is BuzzSumo. Now, what BuzzSumo does, and this is the correct spelling right here, BuzzSumo. And this is an example. I did a search on senseimarketing.com. And what it pulled out some blogs, and this page goes quite long. It pulls out all the blog posts that are on that page. And it tells me quickly how many Facebook shares, LinkedIn shares, Twitter shares, Pinterest shares, Google Plus that I've been having. And it shows you, there's a button right here. It says View Sharers. And what that does is it actually gives you the names of the people who have been engaging with this blog. You can take a look at the backlinks, so you get a good sense of who's coming in to the site, and who's writing about the site and who's creating links back to the site. The more of these backlinks you have, the better it is. Number 3 is get to really know them. Now, I've already said in the previous slide, become acquainted with them, but you need to go further than that. You need to get into building a relationship with them. So follow them on Twitter, comment on their blog posts, set up Google alerts so that you know when things are being said about them or when they're sharing other types of articles. Okay? What we're doing here is you're trying to build a relationship so that when they get that email from you to say, I'd like you to pitch my product, or I would like you to get to know my product, they're more likely to engage and respond to you because you've already built a relationship with them. Now, this is more work than just blanketing somebody with email and hoping that they'll write about it. But is it worth it? Most definitely. The trick is not to talk about your stuff. You should have started this outreach weeks and weeks before ever needing anything, and it should be genuine, and it should be interested. Be interesting in the people that they to the people that they talk to, more and more. Okay. So next thing, if you really want to get to know these people, what you can do is use a tool called Reportative. Now, Reportative is a little bit scary, quite frankly, because it is, well, it's spy software, essentially. And the way that this works is you download it, and if you download it into your Gmail account, when you email people back and forth, as you can see here on the left side, it says you can, every time an email comes in this case it's Mary Davis, it pulls their social media profile into this Google email interface. And so you can see here, this is her LinkedIn profile, this is where she works, she's an investor, she's a board member at this other company, so on and so on. So it really gives you an opportunity to get to know more about them and to follow links everywhere else. So The other thing you're going to want to do, once you've sort of gotten to know them, you've built a relationship with them, you know that this is the right blog, you know that their audience is right. The next thing you want to do is personalize the pitch. So let's talk a little bit about how you get to do that. Some simple things: use their first name. Don't use dear sir, dear madam, that sort of thing. At that point, you should have already had a relationship with them, and using their first name is appropriate. Add some small detail showing that you know their work well. The tone of your pitch and the tone of the topic has to match their tone and their content. So you got to make sure that that comes out very clearly in the presentation. Show the value that your content will provide their audience. Bloggers, in order for them to grow their network, they know that they need to provide value to their audience and not talk about themselves only, or just talk about features and functions. They need to show why it's important to their audience. So you need to show that value to their audience, not just what you're going to do for them. You need to personalize your pitch. Keep it short, make it very creative. Start with a lead right away. Let them know what the expectation is. Be upfront about that. Be clear as to what you have to offer the blogger. Personalize it as much as possible. Reference a blog post or a popular topic like we talked about earlier. Make it sound human. And by this I mean, do not send blanket general emails. Don't do template emails to anybody. Make it sound like it is coming from a real human being that they know, and thoroughly edit. So for example, don't ever have something like this, half sentence or half word, REA. Thoroughly edit your content, because bloggers, even if they're not great writers, if they're that popular and people that you want to reach out to, chances are they're either a great writer and writing is important to them, or they have an editor like I do for my blogging and my the writing that I do when I publish articles. And so that becomes really important to them. Okay. The next thing, when you're personalizing your pitch, avoid certain subject lines. So for example, let's talk, I've got an opportunity. Don't make it salesy, right? Try to be a little bit more direct and be honest about what you're trying to do. So something like, we need to collaborate, or I'm asking for your support. The more honest and upfront you are, the more refreshing it'll be, quite frankly, to them, because most people try and scam these guys and use, salesy type tactics. So you got to avoid that as much as possible. Number 5, make it as interactive as possible. Make it free wherever possible. So one example of making it interactive is Omaha Steaks. I love this, and I wish I was a foodie blogger. I'm surprised that I'm not, actually. But Omaha Steaks sends foodie bloggers actual steaks. So they'll time it to go there on Friday with a note, barbecue's on us tomorrow night, right? And so they can cook it, and then of course the expectation is that they're going to blog about it. Tech bloggers are often given cameras and phones and other type of techie gear to test. Sometimes it's on loan, they have to send it back, but they're actually given something. Tourism firms are often sending bloggers on trips, or they're inviting bloggers to attend special functions or events and dinners. Blog Her is a social media conference for bloggers, specifically mommy bloggers, thus Blog Her is the name. And what they're doing often is not only having conferences and social media events, they're having dinners where they get 10, 20, 30 bloggers together in various cities and having them connect with each other. So basically what they're doing is, again, making it very interactive, because bloggers love to connect with other bloggers and talk about the business and how they're, how each one of them is doing. So whatever that is for you and your product and whatever is right for your audience, make sure that you make it interactive. But you've also got to keep it simple, right? And that's the KISS rule. Keep it simple, stupid. Make everything dead simple. Do not make the blogger have to work for anything. In the case of Triber, what you noticed in Triber is if you wanted to be part of that campaign, it asked the blogger to write a paragraph or two as to why they feel they're right. Whereas within the in-network application, it's just a wizard, right? Just fill in some pieces of information. Make it as simple as possible. Be clear about what you want the outcome to be. Provide URLs to absolutely everything, right? Videos, images, audio clips, offer telephone conversations, whatever content that you have that will make it easy for the blogger to do their own independent research and to see if this product is something that they're going to be interested in and that their audience is going to be interested in. Keep your outreach emails very, very brief and as high level as possible, right? And make sure, and this is really important, that your first email does nothing but get the buy-in for the pitch. It's really important that you don't try and put everything into that first email. Ask for the permission, right? Give them the high level, give them the bullet points of what you're hoping to get, what you're hoping to give them, and why this is valuable to their audience. And this is the next steps. If you're interested, I will send you more information. The other thing is to offer some type of a theme. This becomes really important because bloggers are always, well, not always, but generally starved for themes that they can incorporate into their own blog, then create a series of blogs, and because it just sparks some interest for them and for their readers. It basically makes it easier for them. So, and bloggers really respond to these types of things, especially when you turn it into a challenge or an event. An example is, the American Express Taste of Toronto, where every year, I think they call it Winterlicious. And so Winterlicious, that there's dozens of restaurants around the city that offer fixed price menus so that you can try them, in 3 or 4 of their items for, a price that's generally a little bit cheaper than what you would normally pay. So in a case like for foodie bloggers, you might want to find some of them and say, listen, we want to create a series of posts around the Taste of Toronto or Winterlicious, and we'd like you to blog about 4 different experiences over the course of 2 weeks at 4 different restaurants. Another idea might be Halloween haunts. Leading up into the Halloween period, hey, we're looking for a series of articles and videos and images and tweets about the best places to take your kids for Halloween leading up to, that date. So mazes, haunted houses, that sort of thing. These are the types of activities that they love because it gives them something that's of interest, not only to them, but to their audience, but can create an ongoing series. It makes writing content easy for them. Number 7 is to create blogger communities. Now, by blogger communities, I'm referring to create groups of bloggers. So say, I want to invite you to be one of 10 people who will test this product or who will vet this product. It's always a great idea when you invite certain bloggers to come in as a group and be the first to test something or the first to get a sneak peek at a movie or to read a book or whatever you're trying, taste a product, whatever it is that you've got to pitch. So, some examples are like that phone switch test that we talked about earlier, where 5 bloggers were invited to use a phone that had an iPhone and says, here's a Microsoft-based phone. Let's work, try it for a month, write about your experiences, and then tell us if you're going to switch at the end. That's a really good example of creating a blogger community where they can share and work with each other. And then they drive links back and forth to each other's blogs. So not only are you giving them something to write about, you're also elevating them, their blogs, by making them one of X number of people who are invited, and they can, add a badge to their site, that sort of thing. It plays up on their ego, essentially. But it also helps cross-link between those 5 or 10 or however many bloggers are part of this community. They link to each other, and by linking to each other, they're going to drive more visits, more visibility. And number 8 is don't push. Once you've sent the initial email, accept that sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes they need some time to think about it, but continue to build a relationship with that blogger outside of your request on various social media channels by continuing to comment on their blog, that sort of thing. right? And finally, build a long-term relationship. Even if your pitch has been accepted, you want to continue to work with that person. So maybe continue to follow them on their blog or on Twitter, continue to retweet some of their things. Make sure that your name stays in their eyesight. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, you may need them again, right? If it worked out well the first time, that you can, it's a warm pitch. They're more likely to respond to you and work with you again. But also, even if they're not right for the next pitch, or if what they didn't necessarily work out well for you, they might be able to recommend others to you, right? And give you a good reference when you're going to pitch other bloggers. So you want to keep that network of bloggers sort of communicating with you. PR agencies do a really good job of this, of continuing that relationship with these guys, taking them out for coffee, sending them Christmas cards, that sort of thing. All right, so now I want to give you a test. The test is, I've got two, I guess, blog pitches here. I'm going to give you a second to read these and just think about what's wrong with them. So just take a second right now to read what's up on screen. Hopefully it is big enough on your screen for you to be able to read it okay. So I'll just give you 30 or 45 seconds here. All right, so what is wrong with this? That's the question that I had for you. What is wrong? When you read this, there's a couple of things based on what we just talked about that should really stand out at you. All right, the first, of course, is, now again, we're not in class, so I can't hear your answers. But what you should be looking at is, hello, what? There's no name there. Secondly, of course, it's all in caps. That's something you definitely never do. It says, my name is Sam, and I've recently began working with an upscale clothing retailer who is attempting to increase their online presence. So there's a spelling mistake in here, right? That's something that's obviously wrong. In the first sentence, they're talking about themselves. They're not stating clearly and upfront what it is that's in it for them or in it for their audience, right? I came across your site, whatthefrock.com, and I think it would be a great fit for my client. Right? So again, they're not talking about the blogger's audience or the blog, they're talking about the client. They've done nothing to personalize this, to say, you know what, I've been reading your blog and, you know, that article you wrote about XXX really captured my attention, right? So just to show that you understand the theme of theirs, right? So the key lesson that we can take away from this is keep calm and do your homework. Right? Very, very, very important. Do your homework. Understand the audience. This is critical to getting them to accept your pitch, because it has to be personalized, and it can only be personalized if you know that blogger and their content inside and out. So let's talk about what makes content influential now. So we've talked about how to pitch, but once you've successfully pitched them, you're going to want to develop some content that they're going to be interested in, or that their audience is going to be interested in. So this section really does apply to both the content you develop for your own websites, as well as the content that you encourage others to write, or what you're looking for when you're vetting influential content in the bloggers you want to pitch. So some of the things that we want to take a look at is, number one, target your readers, not your buyers. Now, the thing with that is that it's actually the same person. Your buyers are your readers. But the reason that we separate these two is because people have a different point of view when they're reading content on social media. Generally, they want to be entertained in some way. Let me give you an example. Some of you may know that I'm the CMO of a do-it-yourself winemaking store. And I have been experimenting recently with some Facebook advertising and some boosted posts. So I've been paying to have certain posts dropped into the eyesight and the walls of various people who have indicated that they have an interest in quality wine, do-it-yourself, food and drink, that sort of thing. And some of the content that I was developing, that I was paying to put out there, was promotions that would offer a specific dollar amount to try new products, or invitations to sample certain products. What I was doing is I was targeting them as buyers, as customers, and I got next to no reaction on that. Those campaigns completely failed. And then I posted another pitch, which was, it was an article essentially, should you decant your wine in a decanter or not? When do you do it? When do you not do it? I didn't pay to boost that post. I didn't pay to put that post in more people's streams, yet that post got a lot of comment and got a lot of share. A lot more people saw that, engaged with it, even though I wasn't offering them anything for free. They were the same people, but people wanted to be entertained. They wanted to be informed. They didn't want to be pitched to as a buyer. And so that's the lesson here. When you're developing content, think about who's going to consume that content and make sure that it entertains them and educates them in some way. It has to make their life better, not their wallets smaller. So one example here that I've put in this screen is AmeriCommerce. Now, AmeriCommerce created this infographic and they tweeted it out, and it's the history of web design featuring various companies, and they included the names of those companies in there, right? And this is essentially what they got to see when you clicked on it, and it was an infographic that showed the history of web design from 1990 and then every section thereafter, and it shows these were the trends, this is what was popular. And what was interesting about this is AmeriCommerce doesn't do website design, right? But they understand that their audience is interested in website design because it's part of the web culture and the internet, which is who their customers are and what they're interested in. And so they're producing content just to stay relevant with that audience, to drive them into the site and to get them to engage with them in some way. The other item that you got to consider when you're making your content influential is make sure that it stays very focused on what your niche is. So for example, this is a tweet by GoPro. Now GoPro is that camera that you mount onto your helmet or to your bike or to your tennis racket or wherever, that is used by active people who want to take that camera and really go out and take videos and pictures of things that most people can't do with regular cameras because they're constantly on the move. And what they did, and here's a great example of it, is it's a photo of the day, and every day they have a photo of the day. And this one is snorkeling with a playful seal on Santa Cristobal Island, photo by Sean Ruddiman. And so what they're doing here is they're showing really interesting photos, not just general photos, but photos taken in odd places that are really striking and vivid, that can only be taken by the GoPro. Because the people that they're looking to talk to and looking to engage are those that are active outdoor enthusiasts. These are the people that use and buy GoPros. So their content is very focused on that niche, and so it increases the engagement that they have with that target audience. Oops, sorry, I went the wrong way. Here we go. We are now on create a keyword list. So one of the things that you're going to want to do to make sure that your content stays relevant and engaging is use tools like Topsy, which I'm demonstrating here on screen right now. Topsy will give you certain words that are used more frequently than others on social media channels. So in this case, it'll tell you, tweets per day using the terms content marketing, B2B marketing, and social media marketing. Right, so between a certain time frame, I can see at any given time what words are trending, which words are on the rise, and which words are dropping off. And that gives me an idea of what my audience is interested in, right? And what's buzzing out there so that I can develop content that meets the needs of that audience. And if you can't use tools like that, just simply ask the audience what they're interested in, be it on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you're developing your audience. Ask them what's interesting to them. Ask them what they want to see more of, or ask them to write on your behalf. Get a group of key influencers or stakeholders, people that love your brand, advocates, have them write on your behalf. That becomes that much more interesting to others. Use data to add value. And this is another example of an infographic, and just being visual in general helps. But, we certainly know that, infographics, video, images, that becomes more interesting to people than just text, which is why podcasting is becoming so popular, why video blogs are more popular than traditional blogs these days, why Vine is taking off the way that it is. But if you're going to do things like this, make sure that you include factoids. So in this case, you've got, like every day 100 million Americans view online videos. This is a 43% increase from 2010. So put in these little tidbits of information that adds value to what they're reading and, just basically educates them while it entertains them. Another really, really important factor here is engage with your followers. In this case, this is a Ford Motor Company tweet that asks people to get together and take a 40, which is a play on the word selfie. So show us your selfie of your car. So like have your car take pictures of itself essentially. But what Ford did, not only did it say, send us your pictures, right? And talking to the cars as if they were people, but it actually talked back. It was saying, I love that picture, or you know what, you may want to consider a different trim on that car. Come and talk to us, or talk to your local dealer who happens to be here. So they really developed a relationship with the people that were posting these photos. And again, that makes their content that much more engaging. I'm not sure what's happening here. Hang on. There we go. And the final point is create lists. Now, this one here is arguably the most contentious. It's the one that I hate the most, but frankly, it works, especially if you're looking to target influencers. This on screen is an example of a company called Tracker, and I've talked to you about Tracker in the past. Tracker is a social influencer program. It identifies, and it's one of the best out there, so I have to give them a lot of credit. They're one of the best at identifying who really drives conversations online. And what they did is when they were coming out with their product, their software, and they were launching it, they reached out to 12 very active people on social media that they felt were strong engagers. And they created a series of articles focusing on each one of these. So every month there was a new engager. And they sort of played on the superhero theme that has become so popular these days in movies and in our culture. And so they asked every one of us to basically pose in some kind of a superhero pose based on what makes us engaging. So that's on the left, that's Danny Brown. That's the co-author of our text. Then there's me in the second person holding all of my devices in a Zen-like pose because of the sensei thing. Then there's Dana in her Superman pose and Lee Odin in the same type of Superman pose. And what they did is they really promoted it. Now, why did they do that? Is it because the 12 of us were the most engaging people on social media? Probably not. I'm sure there's thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of us. But the reality is each one of us was an influencer for their product. Danny and I wrote the book Influence Marketing, and so because they are an influence marketing software, by engaging us, by talking to us, by promoting us, we in turn will promote them. And in fact, we've been very big proponents of theirs. So that gives you sort of a sense, you'll see this a lot in the top 100 influencers on Twitter, the top 10 CMOs on Twitter, the most influential women on Pinterest, that sort of thing. They're coming out all of the time. Every day there's a new list. But what these lists really do, if you take a look at who's creating them, it's either a publication that's looking to drive more viewers because everybody they include in the list will share that list. And they always try and put the people with the biggest followers so that when they share it, their article and their magazine will get the most views. Or it's some kind of a software company or marketing company that's looking to engage the people that they include in the list. So it's really become a bit of a joke in the industry, but the reality is it actually works, joke or no joke. Right? And then finally, we're going to close this off with measuring blogger influence. Now, we're going to talk about influence marketing and how to measure it all as a whole at the, towards the end of this course. But right now, I want to go through 5 really quick ways to measure your blog success or blogger outreach. So number 1, blog traffic. Take a look, use Google Analytics to understand, are the blogs that you're accessing, the bloggers, are they actually driving traffic? Individual post views. Take a look, do they have the software like I do on my site here that shows the number of people that are actually sharing that content? Visitor to lead conversion rate. Make sure that when they come to your website, you're tracking, not only are you giving them reasons to come to your website, that you're actually following the path of people that are driven from those bloggers. Make sure that you have enough call to actions or a variety of call to actions, like download here, have somebody call you, buy now, fill in this form. Have all of these action items that will allow you to determine if people are actually engaging with you. And then, of course, finally, leads. How many leads are actually coming through? And then use social monitoring software like a Sysomos or a Radian 6 or those types of tools to identify the number of mentions and the increase in positive sentiment based on those types of actions. All right? So that gives you sort of a sense of what I wanted to cover this week, and that is how to find bloggers and engage with bloggers. Next week, we're going to be talking, and I'll be in class next week, so it won't be like this again. We're going to go through the top 25 brand influencers. So until then, have a great week, and we'll talk to all you guys soon.